Going to be recording, so it would be extra helpful if you would wakey eggs and bakey. So we're going to do the first part, think. So exercise 1 through 4 is on the top of your notes. Go ahead and pull your hood down for me. Think of each segment in the diagram as part of a line. Which lines or planes contain point B and appear to fit the description? So I'm going to review. If I write it on the board, I highly suggest that you write it as well. Okay. So number 1 says skew to FG. Before we can do anything, we need to remember what skew is. So I'd write on the side what skew is. Skew is a weird word. We're talking about 2 lines. We're talking about skew. Skew lines are non-coplanar. What does that mean to me?
Not on the same plane.
Not on the same plane. So they're not coplanar and they don't intersect. Okay, so non-coplanar and they don't intersect. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a skew line with FG. Do the directions specify a point that needs to be in the answer? We sure about that? Point B. So we need a line that is skew. That includes point B. So what would be helpful, since we can't have lines that are coplanar, we could find what planes FG is a part of. FG is a part of the top. Do we agree?
Yes.
Okay, so we can't name any of these lines. It's also a part of the back of the box, so we can't name any of these. So what skew line can we name that includes B? BC. So we can't say AB because AB. We could, but it doesn't include point B. So that's all that includes point B. The next thing we want is a line that is what? Perpendicular. So perpendicular, I'm going to write off to the side. So perpendicular is coplanar. So coplanar means on the same plane. So coplanar, and do perpendicular lines intersect? Yes, they intersect and then do what? And they form 90 degrees. Good. So we're looking for a line on the same plane that intersects and forms 90 that includes point B. BG. Good. Or GB. Same thing. All right, and then the last is parallel. So parallel lines, they are coplanar. And then do they intersect? No. All right, so we're finding a line that is parallel with FG that includes B. It's AB. So AB. All right, number 4, name a plane that is parallel to FGH. So planes are only named with 3 letters, but it still counts for the entire plane. So if you had to describe what part of the box FGH was a part of, what would you say? The back of the box. So we're trying to find what's parallel to the back of the box. So what is parallel to the back of the box? The front of the box. So we're going to name the front of the box. Whenever we name a plane, what goes first? Plane. And then we use how many letters? 3. So what's the easiest 3 letters we could use here? A, B, C. And then that's it with that picture. All right, number 5, it says name a pair of parallel lines. So we want lines that don't intersect. What in our picture would show us that they're parallel? What would we look for on the line? Little arrows or little triangles. Do we see one?
Yes.
We do? Avery, can you name one?
VU.
VU, yep. So if we name VU, how many triangles does VU have? 2. So that means we'd need the other line with 2. So we would say VU is parallel to. What symbol look like is parallel to? The two straight lines. Good. So VU is parallel to QR. All right, and then we have these two also. So how would I name this top line? WX. And then again, you'd use is parallel to. And then we'd name this one, which is YZ. Good. So there's parallel. Perpendicular, what am I looking for in the picture? A right angle box. Do we see one?
Yes.
We do. I'm going to go ahead and outline the two lines that it sits on. So let's go ahead and name this line, because I want to. ST. And then how would you say is perpendicular to? Upside down T. So we have ST is perpendicular to? Sure, UV. Now we just answer yes or no questions. It says, is WX parallel to QR? No. So there are two reasons. What would the number one reason be? So I would say they intersect. That's the other reason why, Natalie. So you're not wrong. This one's just simpler to write. So no, because they intersect. That's the number one reason. The number two reason she just said, how many triangles are on WX? There's one down here. There's one triangle. And then how many are on QR? There's two. Okay, so that's the other reason. I would just write that they intersect because that's simpler. All right, and then the last, what two lines are we questioning? ST and NV. It says that they are perpendicular. So do they intersect and form 90? Yes, they do. And that's the reason. Yes, they intersect and form 90. Okay, it doesn't have a right angle box, but it doesn't need one because if you have 180 degrees here, how many is taken up by this right angle box? 90, which means the other portion will also be 90. Okay? All right. So we're going to talk about parallel lines and transversals. We're going to be talking about measurements. Okay? We talked about parallel lines 2 seconds ago. What was the definition of a parallel line? Yeah, they're coplanar and don't intersect. Transversal, however, it's on your paper. We're going to write it down. It's in the middle of your paper. Can anybody remember what transversal means? Yeah, close. Yeah, it's one line that intersects two more lines. So you were a little more specific than you need to be. So one line that intersects two or more lines. It's right here. All right, so one line that intersects two or more lines. Okay, so we're going to review our relationships. Corresponding is the first. Corresponding are angles that are on the same spot in the transversal. So angle 1 is in the top left. In our other intersection, what else is in the top left? 5. So you would say 1 and 5 are corresponding. So that's what you're going to list. It's at the bottom. It's right here. So we got 1 and 5. 2 and 6. They're both in the top right. So 2 and 6. 3 is in the bottom left. So then what angle will correspond with that?
7.
7 is also in the bottom left. 4 is in the bottom right, so it will correspond with angle 8. Good. So 4 and 8. Letter B is alternate exterior. So when we're talking about interior, exterior, what are we talking about in or outside of? The two lines. Good. So this is the interior And then all of these angles are on the exterior. So angle 1 is on the exterior. What is angle 1 alternate exterior with? 1 and 8. So let's say 1 and 8. And then 2 and 7. So 1 and 8, 2 and 7. We'll do alternate interior, which means they're on the inside of the box and they alternate across my transversal. So 3 is on the inside. What is it alternate interior with? 6. So that means 4 and 5. So 3 and 6, 4 and 5. The last is consecutive interior. So still looking on the inside. You're looking on one side of the transversal. So the transversal cuts the box into a left side and a right side. We all see that? Okay. So consecutive means they're both on either the left or both on the right. So it'd be 3 and 5, and then 4 and 6. Good. Oops, sorry. You can flip, but I'm going to ask an extra question. I saw this on the Kahoot a lot. So most people thought 3 and 4 were consecutive interior, but they are not. Can anybody tell me what they are? They're a linear pair. Good. So they're a linear pair. The number one reason they're not consecutive interior, which side of the transversal is 3 on? The left. And then which side of the transversal is 4 on? The right. Okay. By definition, that it wouldn't make sense for us. Okay. So consecutive interior are at 2 separate intersections. So it'll always be 3 and 5, 4 and 6, or whatever numbers they have. Okay. This is where you're going to take your highlighters and things. First thing we're going to write, all of these angles, and how many are there? How many angles are there? Relationships that we're talking about here. How many boxes are there on this second page? 6 boxes. 6 relationships. So this is where we are. You should see this before because we did this on Friday. If you didn't do this on Friday, you need to pick up a paper and do it because it'll be in your notebook check. Okay? It's also very helpful. So they're either going to be congruent or supplementary. You should already know 2 of these because we learned them in chapter 1. So really you're learning 4 new things today. Okay? All right, so first one is a linear pair. I know that yours doesn't look like this on your paper, but that is fine. Go ahead and find linear pair. So on yours, looks like this, yes? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. There are a bunch of linear pairs that we talked about. What is linear with 1? 2. What is also linear with 1? 3. So 2 and 1 are linear. What else is linear with 2? 4. So on and so forth. So there's a bunch. We're not highlighting anything. But we should already know what their measures are. The definition of a linear pair were 2 angles that were adjacent. And then what was the other word?
Supplementary.
Supplementary. So you're going to write supplementary in this box. A linear pair, they're supplementary. So linear pairs are supplementary. And what does supplementary mean to me?
Equals 180.
They add up to 180. Add up to 180. Doesn't equal 180. Okay, so 2 angles that add up to 180. The next one was vertical. So that's the box to the left of it. You can highlight these. You can take out 4 colors if you want to. It is up to you. I'll show you the way to do it without 4. You have angle 1, which is right here. What angle is vertical to 1? 4. Oops, sorry. So 1 and 4 would be vertical. What would 2 be vertical with? 3. You don't have to highlight them because you only have 2 colors. What about 5? What would 5 be vertical with? 8. So that means 6 and 7 would also be vertical. So we should already know about their measurements. What do we know about vertical angles? They're congruent. So go ahead and write congruent in the box. Vertical angles are congruent. And congruent means? Same measure. If you don't know that by now, I'd write it at the top because I'm going to keep saying congruent. And if you don't know what congruent is, you're going to be lost the rest of the year, actually. Okay, so vertical angles are congruent. All right, then we're going to talk about, I believe it's alternate interior. I'm sorry, this isn't a, nope, it's corresponding. We're doing corresponding next. Corresponding. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of the corresponding angles are congruent. Go ahead and write congruent in the box of corresponding. So corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. Why did I write congruent? So right now we have vertical angles are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent. So this is the new piece of information that you don't have yet. So for your paper, you can highlight. So again, on Friday, we highlighted a ton. You could highlight just like you did on Friday. So I think on your paper, these are 2 and 6. 2 and 6? Yeah. So corresponding, again, are in the same spot at their intersection. Okay. If you're not highlighting anything, that's going to be really hard for you, I promise you. So these are corresponding, 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 corresponding. So I would identify that, like, it's these two and these two, because then you're looking like you have the same. All right, next one. We actually do alternate interior, so that's to the right of this box. So alternate interior. So if two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then the pairs of alternate interior angles are congruent. So alternate interior angles are congruent. So with your colors, this is 3, yes? So 3 and, what was that, 6 on your paper? And then 4 and 5. All right, so that's alternate interior. Next one's alternate exterior. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the alternate exterior angles are congruent. So alternate exterior are congruent. All right, so they are congruent. So that would be 1 and, what is that? 1 and 8. And then you'd have 2 and 7. So those are alternate exterior. We only have one more left, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Last one is consecutive interior. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the consecutive interior angles are supplementary. So they'll add up to 180. So on yours, this would be 4 and 6, yes? 4 and 6. And then it would be 3 and 5. Yep. All right, so consecutive interior will add up to 180 degrees. So we're going to use this information to solve problems. So the number one thing is to be able to define a relationship. It's going to be one of these 6. What would be easier to remember? Memorize all 6, memorize which are congruent, or memorize which are supplementary? Which are supplementary? So how many are supplementary? 2 of them. And realistically, how many of that is that new information? It's only 1, right? Consecutive interior is a new piece of information for supplementary. All the rest of them are congruent. All right? So we're going to use this. We're going to do example 1. You'll see a problem like this on the test, on the quiz, on anything really. You'll see this on the exam. The measures of 3 of the numbered angles are 120 degrees. Identify those angles and explain your reasoning. So what I see students do is they don't do the second half of the problem. So make sure when we do this, you're explaining your reasoning. So we'll start with 120. I'm just going to go down the list of angles that are congruent. Is there a vertical angle with 120 degrees?
Yeah.
Yes, what angle is that? 4. So you're going to say angle 4. I'm just going to list down here why. Angle 4 and 120 degrees. What relationship do they have?
Vertical.
They're vertical. So angle 4 and 120 degrees are vertical angles. So that's the first one. Keep on moving. Is there a corresponding angle with 120 degrees? Yes, which one? It's 5. So angle 5 is our next one. Reason being, angle 5 and 120 are corresponding angles. Alternate interior, I'm just going down the list again. Alternate interior are 4 and 5, they're already marked. Do we have any alternate exterior with 120 degrees? Yes, what angle is that? 8. Good. So the reason we picked angle 8 and 120 are alternate exterior angles. So this entire thing would be your answer. All of that. So I'll show you the dumbed down way to figure out what angle is what. If another math teacher heard this, they'd be like, you're dumb. But it helps people remember. It's a zigzag pattern. The angles that are congruent are a zigzag. So 120 and angle 4. Then it zigs over here to angle 5. And then across again to angle 8. Does everyone see the zigzag? Okay. Same thing with the other. You should be able to find the measure of the other angle. What relationship does 120 and angle 3 have? They're a linear pair. So what do we know about linear pairs? They're supplementary, which means they add to 180. So what plus 120 makes 180? 60. So that means angle 3 is 60. So do the zigzag. What else is 60? Well, yes, but we're doing the zigzag. 2, and then 7, and then 6. Okay? But all these relationships should be correct. So I'm going to erase all my lines to show you. Vertical angles should be congruent. So are all of my vertical angles congruent?
Yes.
Yes? Corresponding angles should be congruent. Are all of my corresponding angles congruent?
Yes.
Yes? Alternate interior. Are all of my alternate interior angles congruent? Yes? Alternate exterior. Are my alternate exterior angles congruent?
Yes.
Yes? And then my linear pairs we talked about. Are my consecutive interior angles congruent? Yes. Okay? So it should fit like a puzzle piece. There are many ways to come to this answer, but just make sure you explain what relationships you're using to get to that answer. Make sense? All right, so we're going to do the next example. On these, I want you to do 3 things, and you're going to write them down. So step 1. Okay? You're going to define a relationship. Or you're going to do the zigzag. Sometimes one is easier than the other. So define a relationship or do the zigzag. Again, how many relationships are there to choose from? On the side of my board? 6 relationships. Okay, so you're choosing from that. Or you do the zigzag. Sorry, it's written right here. So define the relationship or do the zigzag. Number 2, you're going to decide if they're congruent or if they're supplementary. So you're going to decide congruent or supplementary. And then step 3 will be based on if it was congruent or supplementary. Okay? So if it's congruent, what does congruent mean to me again? They're the same measure. Okay? So if they're congruent, you're going to set them equal. Set the angles equal. So if they're congruent, you set the angles equal. Because congruent means they're the same measure. So that means they're equal measures. If they're supplementary, they will add up to 180 degrees. Those are 3 steps I go through. This example, you could do a couple things. We're going to start with number 1. Is there a relationship between the angle they gave me and x plus 5?
Yes.
There is not a relationship. So then it might be easy to do the zigzag. Okay? 115. So that means the zigzag continues over here. 115. Continues over here. 115. Continues over here. 115. So does x plus 5 equal 115 degrees? Did the zigzag make 115 land on x plus 5? No. So it does not equal 115 degrees. So they're not congruent. Okay? X plus 5 does not equal 115 degrees because it doesn't land that way. Okay? So you can do one of 2 things. It is your choice. If you are good at geometry, I'll give you a second option. If you are not good at geometry, or just aren't very good at seeing angles, let's say that, then I'll show you this option. Okay? So, are these 2 angles going to be congruent or supplementary? I kind of already said it. They're going to be supplementary because 115 did not land on x plus 5. Okay, so they're going to be supplementary, which means 115 plus x plus 5, what are they going to equal? 180. Okay? They're going to add up and equal 180. We all see that? So this is the first option. You can say 115, which is one of your angles, plus x plus 5, which is your second angle, and they will equal 180. Okay? So your 2 angles, they add up and equal 180. And then you just solve from here. Okay? So it's 115 plus 5? 120. So we added these. Then you got plus x equals 180. What do I do next? Subtract 120, so then x equals 60. So, if geometry is not your jam, okay, it's not your thing, you're just trying to get by with your life, okay, just do this. If you find geometry simple, or you find angles simple and you catch on really quickly, this is a second option. I find this to be simpler for me. You could actually find out how many degrees this angle is. If this angle is 115, how would I find out how many actual degrees this angle is? I would subtract from 180. So 180 minus, what is it, 115? Which would make 65. So this angle has to be 65, this angle 65, this angle 65. So you would set it up the same way. X plus 5 equals 65. What would we do next? Subtract 5, and x equals 60. You get the same exact answer. So if you see it this way, then that's fine. If you do it this way, that is also fine. Make sense? So how did I get 65? Subtract 115 from 180. Okay? We're going to keep on going. Go to the next example. All right, so first thing, we're going to go back to our steps. Is there a relationship between 136 and 7x plus 9? No, there is not. So then you can do the zigzag. Did 136 land on 7x plus 9? No. So do they equal? No. So if they're not congruent, then they are supplementary. So we're going to do the same thing. You add them up, and what will they equal? 180. So 136 is my first angle. I'm going to add it to 7x plus 9, and then they will equal 180. Okay, so add my two angles, set them equal to 180. So I combine like terms. What's 136 plus 9? 145, yep. And then I drop down that 7x. My next step, subtract 145. So 7x equals 35, and x equals 5. Had you done it my other way? Did anybody try it the other way? What would 7x plus 9 equal?
144.
Close? It'd be 44. Because it's already 100 degrees, so it'd be 44. And you get the same answer. You get x equals 5. Okay, so you could have done it either way. All right, our last example together. Well, we have two more. This is just new. You're going to be proving a theorem about parallel lines. So here's what you do in a problem like this. And I want you to write it. Put a star next to it. And you see how I have it right here with purple? All you're going to be doing, and I'd write it in, you're defining all the relationships in the diagram. Define all the relationships in the diagram. And I'll tell you why in a second. But this will be on the test. This almost exact problem. People get it wrong because they don't look back at this. So I'd put a star next to it, maybe highlight it, so you can remember to come back and look at this. It says prove that if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the alternate interior angles are congruent. So we're trying to prove that my alternate interior angles are congruent. So which of these angles are we trying to prove are congruent? Angle 1 and angle 2. So that's what we're trying to prove. Okay? So here's what you do, and I told you to write it down. You're going to define all the relationships in the diagram. And I'll show you why at the end. I'll show you with a number. Okay? So let's start with angle 1. We're trying to prove that angle 1 and angle 2 are the same measure. But let's try to prove a relationship about angle 1 and angle 3. Do angle 1 and angle 3 have a relationship?
Yes.
They do. What relationship do they have? They're corresponding, which makes them congruent. You're actually going to write both. So they're corresponding. You can use the angle symbol. That's what I use. They're corresponding, therefore congruent. And I'm also going to use the congruent symbol. Okay, so angle 1 and 3 are corresponding, therefore they are congruent. That's the first relationship I can name. What other relationship can I name? 2 and 3. So angle 2 and angle 3, what are they? They're vertical angles. What do I know about vertical angles? Yep. That's all you have to do. I'll explain why with a number. I'll let you write it down. Pick a number between 1 and 90.
90.
That's not between 1 and 90.
85.
Sure, 85. So we said angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding, therefore are congruent. So if angle 1 was 85 degrees, what would angle 3 be? 85 degrees. Okay? We literally just listed that. Angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding, therefore they're the same measure. Then we said angle 2 and angle 3 are vertical. So therefore they're also congruent. So then what is angle 2? What would angle 2 be? 85. So did we just prove that 1 and 2 are congruent? Yes. This is called the transitive property. You also learned it in the law of syllogism. If 1 and 3 are congruent and 2 and 3 are congruent, that means 1 and 2 are congruent. Okay? So that's all you need to do. You define all the relationships in the picture. So we literally listed 2 things, and that was enough to prove. Okay? Question about this one? Okay. You're actually going to turn to the next page. All right. You're going to see a problem like this on your homework. Start with step 1. Define the relationship. Is there a relationship between these 2 angles? There sure is. What relationship is it? Alternate exterior. What do I know about alternate exterior angles? They are congruent. So I've just done first 2 steps. It's not our bell. So we have that they're alternate exterior, and therefore they are congruent. So if they're congruent, what do I do with them?
Equal them to each other.
Yep, set the angles equal. So that's all I'm going to do. Set the angles equal. Minus 1 plus 14x equals 12x plus 17. Then I solved. What's my smaller x? 12x. So I'm going to subtract that. So minus 1 plus, what's 14x minus 12x? 2x equals 17. What's my next step? Add 1. So I got 2x equals 18, so x equals 9. Your directions will tell you whether to plug it back in or not. Your homework, you're not plugging it back in. But sometimes you might. You just need to read the directions. There are none here. I'm just trying to set you up so you can be successful in your homework. I'm going to show you this one. This is not on your paper, but there's one like this on the homework. Each of you will have 1 or possibly 2 like this. So I want every single person to look at this problem. It's in the middle of my page. So my first class struggled with this. What is the measure of the angle I just highlighted? I know it's moved over. What is the measure of the whole angle? X plus 80, right? And then the measure of this angle would be x plus 20. Is there a relationship between them?
Yes.
Yes, there is. What relationship is that? They're consecutive interior. So what do I know about consecutive interior angles? They're supplementary. And supplementary means? They add up and equal 180. Good. So you would take them. What's the measure of my first angle? X plus 80. And I would add it to the measure of my second angle, which is x plus 20. And what do both angles add up and equal? 180. And then what would I do from there? Combine like terms, get x by itself. Okay? So whenever you get to a problem like this, define the relationship, decide congruent or supplementary, and then you're going to set up an equation. I'm going to give you your partner worksheet. You need to name the relationship. So you see how I wrote consecutive interior? That's what you'll be writing if it's consecutive interior. Or vertical, corresponding, so on and so forth. You're going to show me the work, and then you're going to come to an answer. I'll show you what the